G'day and welcome to another episode of Pellowe Talk. I'm Dave Pellowe. Today we're going to have a chat with Bernard Gaynor, who's recently won a victory in the High Court of Australia. That's significant for freedom of speech. Although the High Court didn't rule on the contravention of free speech as the issue directly itself, what it did say is that one state's anti-discrimination tribunal has no jurisdiction to pull other people in from anywhere in the country that they like and start wielding law as a weapon. Joining me right now is Bernard Gaynor. Bernard, how are you?
Not too bad, David. Not too bad at all.
You must be pretty pumped. It was a bit of a success for you after a very long campaign.
Last week was a very good week. It was a successful start of the end of a battle that's been going for 4 years.
Wow.
So an activist in New South Wales, as many people would be aware, has lodged 35 complaints against me under New South Wales Anti-Discrimination Law. I live in Queensland. Those complaints are related to my views on marriage, family and morality. And until the High Court ruling came down on Wednesday, I was facing fines of around, potentially up to $1.7 million. The High Court has put an end to that, although there are some spot fires breaking out because the day before the High Court hearing actually occurred, New South Wales changed its laws in an attempt to keep its complaint process alive. So I do have to go back to court again. I think the High Court judgment is very good for us in relation to that battle, but on the 23rd of May, I'll be back in a New South Wales court with my views on marriage and family that I expressed here in Queensland.
What does it actually mean for the application of law in Australia, the existence of these anti-discrimination tribunals, their voracious appetite under the wrong director or commissioner to actually weaponize the law and go after people? What kind of restrictions has this effectively put on their powers, if any?
That's a good question, Dave. So up until the High Court ruling, these thought police activist anti-discrimination boards had the view that they could go after anybody in Australia. And so it created a situation where activists were looking for the state with the worst laws to try and target people all over the nation. Now, the High Court has ruled that that process inside their tribunals is unconstitutional. What it means is that the pain and suffering I've been through for the last 4 years has all been inflicted by an unconstitutional thought police. The High Court has effectively ruled that they are the ones who are operating outside the law and not me. So it has put a stop to that. What New South Wales has done, and this is a bit technical and legal, they have now tried to say, right, well, anti-discrimination complaints against people outside New South Wales will go to the tribunal first, but then we'll transfer it to a court. Now, there is no dispute that a court can hear matters between residents of different states. You only need to think about all sorts of different complaints and issues that people might need to take to courts involving people in another state or a company in another state. So there's no argument about that. And it at least is a good thing, I think, that these complaints will be moved from a tribunal process, which I describe them as kangaroo courts, into a proper court. But the reason this is still going on is because there has been no ruling made yet about the real jurisdictional issue, which is why the hell is a New South Wales law being applied against a person who lives in Queensland? And I think that battle is coming, and I'm confident we'll win that battle too.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's this trend in current legislation and politics, which is disturbing. It's anti-freedom, anti-democracy, and anti-justice, and that is the extrajudicial, outside the judicial system, people are being hung, drawn and quartered without due process, without a fair trial, with biased and activist agendas at place. We're seeing it in university campuses where a board, including students, actually determined the guilt or innocence of another student accused of rape with far inferior standards of evidence and burdens of evidence put on people. And people's reputations and characters are being defamed and tarnished by a process that would never pass muster in the real justice system. And these parallel things are being set up in human rights commissions, in anti-discrimination tribunals around Australia. And it's really weaponizing the legal system against innocent people. And all of the standards that our justice system has evolved with and become, almost sacred, such as, innocence until proved guilty, is, the fair trial, the right to confront your accuser. There's many, many standards which are contravened by these extrajudicial weaponized tribunals and panels. And it's about time that, there was a test case in Australia. It's just sad that nobody wants to be it. So in one respect, the nation owes you a debt of gratitude and your family for the 4 years of pain and suffering that you have had to suffer so far.
Yeah, well, look, Dave, you're 100% right. The system in these anti-discrimination tribunals is out of control. I don't think most people understand how bad it is. So, for instance, it is free to lodge complaints. There is no penalty for failed complaints. Any costs are incurred by the defendant. It's a no-cost tribunal system. And the fine, if you like, at the end of the day, if there's any granted, goes to the complainant. So it's a gravy train for activists to simply seek to, as I call it, legal extortion, extort money out of other people. So, for instance, in my case, very shortly after the first complaint made it to the tribunal, I received a letter essentially demanding $10,000 to make the complaint go away. Now, I think a lot of people in the past have probably paid that $10,000 to make it go away. I chose not to do that. I chose to fight it, which has been a lot more expensive than $10,000. But I think once you start paying money every time you express an opinion for the privilege of expressing it, you're putting yourself on the road to silence or hiding to nothing.
Yeah, I agree. You've been mercilessly bullied legally within the system. We claim to, as a nation, be against bullying, but when it's free for...
Just on that point, I think it's better or more truthful to say that I've been mercilessly bullied illegally as a result of this High Court decision, because
that's a good point.
That the whole process is unconstitutional.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. The High Court has ruled that the merciless bullying you've been the recipient of hasn't been constitutional at all. It's been it's been terrible on every level. Certainly immoral. The point you make that it's free for these people, there's no downside, there's no cost. Win, lose or draw, they will never be worse off than they are today. It's actually encouraging people to make frivolous complaints, because who knows, they just might pay off. They might just get a judgment in their favor, and score a generous windfall as a result. And that's more likely when you're with the activist trend of how these decisions go. Tell me, is this the end of the road for you? What's next? How do you put this to bed and wrap this up?
Yeah, well, it's not the end of the fight, because, as I said, on the 23rd of May, I'll be back in court in New South Wales. I think I've been describing it that the main bushfire has been put out, right, but there are a couple of spot fires that have sprung up that now need to be dealt with before we can start looking at how the fire was caused in the first place. Are you optimistic about that fight? Look, I am optimistic. I think the High Court ruling is very strong. It upholds the Court of Appeal's ruling, and the Court of Appeal made it very clear that there was no power whatsoever to even refer the complaints to the tribunal in the first place. So I think we've got a strong legal position to argue that the new system itself is unconstitutional in the way it operates, but we've got to go through the process again on that, which starts on the 23rd of May. Do you foresee any justice in this, any vindication where not only will you be, all charges dismissed, but the person who has been, or people who have been the source of this bullying illegally against you, do you see any consequence for them, or is there really no consequence for such an action? Well, I think the High Court ruling has made it clear that the legal system does work when you put the hard yards in to fight it. It's a shame you just have to be very well funded to get that justice. you do have to be well funded, and I'd like to thank the many thousands of people who've donated to support this case, because I wouldn't have even got to the court without their generosity and assistance.
Wow.
But yes, I do think...
Good on you, Australia.
Yes, thank you very much. But I do think that we can see justice in the end. We've just got to keep the fight going.
Yep. Awesome. Bernie, thank you so much. Without any pretense, full disclosure, Bernie and I are mates. I tell him when he's wrong, and I like him a lot because I think he's right most of the time. We have a lot in common. But one of the things I really admire about Bernie is the fight he's fighting on behalf of my family and your family and future families, to not be victims of a weaponized legal system in Australia for people who just hold traditional Aussie values about freedom of speech and political expression. Those freedoms are under attack. And Bernie, I thank you very much for taking the slings and arrows with yourself and your family for so many years, and your fortitude to face the battle.
Thank you very much, Dave. I appreciate it. And yes, we are mates, and I'll put a plug in for you. You've taken a hard road. It's not easy what you're doing, but it's very important to get the word out there about the situation we're facing today in Australia. So please keep that up. Yeah.
And on the eve of Anzac Day, as a decorated Iraq veteran, I'd also like to thank you for your service.
No, thank you very much.
That's it for Pellowe Talk this episode. If you'd like to follow the story more and check out some of the backstory from Bernard Gaynor, head over to his website, bernardgaynor.com.au. Just Google it. You'll find him everywhere. He's also got a great Facebook page where he'll keep you up to date. His writings are provocative, but well articulated and well thought through. It's okay if we disagree on some things, or even a lot of things, because that discussion going forward helps us to have a better democracy. Unless we can expose bad ideas, we don't know if we've got good ideas. And if you'd like to be a monthly partner of Pellowe Talk for as little as $3, that'll help this channel keep going, producing content and bringing you interviews like that. But for now, that's this episode of Pellowe Talk, and we'll see you later.